Chico's gonna give you what? Rev is gonna give you what? Ben is gonna give you what? All three are gonna give you the Big D. Chico's gonna give you what? Rev is gonna give you what? Ben is gonna give you what? All three are gonna give you the Big D. Chico, Rev, and Ben, yep, they're at it again. Breaking down the team, putting stats up in your head. Nothing left unsaid, they're leaving it all on the field. Just like the favorite team, raising 2 cups and we'll chill. The knowledge is so real for a trio so true to representing the gray, red, white, and blue. And you love them too, that you can't deny. So just one time, let me hear Dallas till I die. Chico's gonna give you what? Rev is gonna give you what? Ben is gonna give you what? All three are gonna give you the Big D. Chico's gonna give you what? Rev is gonna give you what? Ben is gonna give you what? All three are gonna give you the Big D. Soccer podcast?
Well, welcome back to Big D After Dark. After an international break and some illness to deal with, we're live. We're ready to go and discuss and break down recent FC Dallas news and events and rumors and results. So much to get to tonight. FC Dallas gets a win at home after a dismal set of results. Goals from Jesus Ferreira and Franco Jara lead the way enough to claim the Copa Tejas. FC Dallas is the best team in Texas. Hey, first win under interim head coach Marco Ferruzzi, so we have a lot to talk about to break down his where he is, our head coaching search, other rumors, Ricardo Pepi watch, North Texas Soccer Club playoffs, and more. And of course, we'll take your comments and questions live. Thanks for joining us. This is Big D After Dark. And there we go. We are live, and we are coming right to you, streaming into your devices as we get going here on another edition of Big D After Dark. Thank you for joining us. Of course, I'm your host, Nathan Hill. You can follow me at Nathan J. Hill on Twitter. There in the middle is our buddy Jose Carmona. You can follow him at El Chico Carmona. And on the end is our buddy Tommy LaBeouf. You can follow him at Tom_FC Dallas on Twitter. Yeah, and right now as we get going, we have a lot to talk about. We probably won't get to everything. There's a lot of rumors swirling around. There's a lot of question marks. And of course, there's soccer games that we can talk about. We're not going to cover every match that we missed last week. There was just a lot, but and there was also a lot of sadness in those results that we probably best put behind us and move on. You know, and have it's November 1st. Have a new disposition, right? Look to the future. But there's some answers that we need and fans need. But nonetheless, we could start in a good, positive place as FC Dallas welcomed Austin FC for the last Copa Tejas match. So Copa Tejas is the local sort of supporters-run, Texas-wide, top-tier professional cup, a brand new thing, our first edition. And, you know, really FC Dallas probably should have run away with this thing much earlier on, but made life hard for them. But in the end, thanks to Austin beating Houston, and then thanks to good form against Austin at home, FC Dallas was able to claim its first and only hardware of the season, and we celebrate that and can say congratulations on a great performance. And also what makes this interesting is that this was the first win under Marco Ferruzzi as interim head coach, so which is a disappointing thing to say. He was supposed to turn things around, didn't quite turn out that way, did it? But hey, a win is a win. Goals from Jesus Ferreira and a clutch goal from Franco Jara, who has actually been in a little bit decent form lately. So hey, we have much to dissect. So Jose, Tommy, give us your thoughts on the match. What were some real positive things that you saw as FC Dallas claimed Copa Tejas?
Well, I want to say it's the continued play of Cerrillo and Cervania as the dual D mids. They've had a nice run, and mind you, they started the last 4 matches, like 4 games in 11 days, which is insane. And you see with those youthful legs. I think also I want to point out that red card was drawn by Paxton, showing a flash of his old self, which we've all been questioning. Where has that been? He's been dreadful for most of the season, and then you finally get that glimpse that's like, oh, that's what Paxton can do. You know, he can make plays and punish the other teams, and really that red card changed the match really for FC Dallas. So that's where I'm happy is seeing the young guys step forward. You know, Jesus also being on a tear to finish the season, and I'm gonna say even seeing Hara finish strong. I think people shouldn't be upset about that because I doubt that Dan Hunt's going to let him go for next season. So Hara will probably be in the team next year. So I think we need to take that in stride and say, hey, he finished strong. And, you know, if he can give us more of that consistently next year with the idea that we all believe Pepe is, you know, going to play his last match in FCD uniform next weekend. I think hopefully that gives us a little hope that maybe next season won't be as bad as this season.
Okay.
Yeah. So quick note, I would say on the Paxton red card, that was actually what I understand was a coaching strategy change where him and Jesus swapped positions and kind of snuck Paxton behind the line, and Ferreira was kind of like a decoy, like they thought he was the last man, and they swapped, right? But the thing is, I want to point out is that where was Paxton when that play happened? He was in the middle, right? Me and my guy who sits next to me, Kirk, we always say, like, he's a midfielder. Why is he playing on the wing? But the point is that he made that play in the middle of the field. I still think Paxton is coming back. I still think this is like Jesus Ferreira a year ago or so where it's just not there. I mean, he's still recovering. I see the flashes, but he's not had a great season by any means, right? I mean, but the game the other night, I thought Jesus Ferreira, I mean, solid. He's, you know, you can see he's going to be a star, and he's on a bad team, right? So
I think he's been the MVP for the team down the stretch.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Second half.
What I was going to say is that we haven't seen a lot of the risky back defensive play ball that we saw in the Lucci under Marco. Like, that was one of my biggest complaints about Lucci. I thought we played the ball the back too many times, too risky. And I don't know if y'all noticed, but it's been a subtle change under Marco. It hasn't happened overnight, but last night when's the last time you remember, like in a game maybe, that we had such a risky ball from the keeper to the back line, right? I think with Marco, I think we saw that the team is keeping their shape and defense. So now they have given up goals, but it hasn't been where, hey, how do we get like 5-on-2? You know, we haven't seen that under Marco. So I think there's been some steadiness in the defense back there. It's improved now. We still don't have a superstar, I think, on our team like Mario Diaz or Castillo. We haven't had that like other teams have, right? So I still think this is like a budget team. I still think this is like a developmental team. But the good things that I saw was just all the players that didn't give up. We didn't see that, and they kept their shape. And the other things that we saw, he didn't play. Did Acosta get in the game, Brian Acosta? He's kind of disappeared, has he, since Marco's taken over, right?
He's been injured, really.
Has he been injured?
Yeah, I don't think he's been 100%. And no, I agree with what you're saying, Tommy. But at the same time, the attack has sort of disappeared somewhat because they're playing so defensively. And I don't know. I have been unimpressed with Ferruzi's penchant for waiting till way past the 70th minute to make any significant substitutions. You know, I think it's cost him in some games where you see the other teams are willing to make substitutions in the first half or at the end of the first half, and you know, these teams have made as many as 4 adjustments long before Ferrucci makes his first adjustment, and I think that's come back to bite FC Dallas. So I think I have not been happy with his handling.
Sure, but let me read some of the guys on the bench because I'm looking at it right now. Bresson, Quignon, Brian Acosta, Andres Ricarte, Sean, Freddy Vargas, Hara. I mean, he's got the 11 starters out there for a reason, right? I don't know that these guys are.
But take into account that they played 4 matches in 11 days. You would think rotation. These guys are not getting rotated, and it's been their youthfulness that has kept them fresh. So I think, you know, you got the youthful legs in Cerrillo, Cervania, and Jesus, and Paxton, and they brought out Tafari. But I think, fine. I don't know if maybe they're able to handle it because they haven't played all that much, like Cervania and Cerrillo, for most of the season. Maybe they're fresh.
We also don't know who's hurt or not. But the other things I want to comment real quick is that I think that while I still don't think I'm excited about him being a starter, the one who had the assist to, I'm drawing a blank again. He had assist to Jesus, the first goal.
Brian.
O'Brien has played better in the final third. Now, I don't consider him like a bona fide superstar starter. I don't know if he's even reached Michael Barrios, level yet, but I see improvement in him, especially in the final third. And
half of the season, O'Brien has made that adjustment to MLS. That I think gives us hope, because let's face it, he's not a TAM guy. He's not a deep, DP.
Is he kind of a budget signing?
Very reasonable.
What's his 500?
Yeah, 500K, which is
So if that's the case, then that's he's kind of like blossoming a little bit. So that's been a good sign. But in my opinion, let's not do it in the MLS games. Let's do it in the MLS 2 and in the other leagues, right?
But no, I think O'Brien, I think he's made his adjustment. So I'm fine with him being there next year. The only thing I want to see the team do is bring in somebody to push him. Okay.
Oh yeah, no, I agree with you. We have to have more
guys starter next year. Fine, but I like to see somebody that can come in and push him. If you can pay him 500K, why can't you bring another guy at 500K and that can push him? Maybe an incentive heavy.
And going back to Marco, the other thing I saw, under Lucci had this thing about, hey, we're going to possess the ball. And my gosh, we saw too much of ball possession with Hedges passing to Bresson, passing back to the keeper, passing to Cannon, passing back to Hedges, and not trying to score. Now, with Marco Ferrucci, I know that he's told me that, always having the ball is not a good thing. Just because the opponent has the ball, that's not necessarily a bad thing, and I think under Ferrucci, keep the shape. And you see, we've had some attacking the other night. I mean, it wasn't like we didn't attack. I'd like to see more. But because I think Pepe was kind of like neglected a little bit, but I think we need a playmaker on.
That has been an issue for Pepe, and for really anyone who started up top for the team is the ball distribution to them has been lacking. The crosses to them have been lacking. We've known this. We've known this all year, and there just hasn't been a fix. And I will say right now that I've not been impressed with Ferrucci as a guy that I want handed the job for next season. But that's not an insult to him, as I believe he's doing what's right for the young players, playing Cerrillo, Cervania. Playing the young guys, he hasn't played Shun, which I don't think he rates him that much himself, but he is giving minutes to the guys that are probably going to be here next year that are going to, the team's going to rely on the most.
Yeah, we don't know his full marching orders. I mean, right now he said one thing to they said one thing to the fans, but yeah.
So you have to. He's doing the right thing for the club in the future. Right. Maybe not so much for them not, but I think he understood that the team was out of the playoffs. And
what I've heard on Sean is that he doesn't have the muscle yet. He's still going like a kid out there, but what I saw, it looked pretty good, but I think we need competition at left wing, right back, especially. I just feel like this team is not like built to compete. I mean, like, you got to have some adult starters that are, bona fide players, and I don't know that we have that. I mean, like
A lot of questions, yeah.
One more comment. So when you watch Pepe on the USA play and you see Arison on the wing going down and you have Pulisic in the middle, and you see a different Pepe, right? Because you get Service, right? He doesn't have that on FC Dallas. The wings, take out Ferreira out of this, because I think Ferreira is a good player, even though he's only 20. But there's not a lot of veteran leadership or superstar. There's not even one veteran superstar.
I think, like I said, I think that you've seen a team that has potential for next year with the right additions and right subtractions. But I don't really foresee them adding. I know that you want to try to. Most people want them to add another right back, but I think the team is going to stick to their guns, and they're going to say we're going to find that right back within the team. You got Tomasi, you got Munjoma, who weren't ready, but now they'll have a full season under their belt, and they'll have a full off season. And I think they'll be giving a shot to one of those, to battle each other out. And I will throw this in there. You got to keep an eye out for Colin Smith over in North Texas.
Yeah.
Because
I haven't seen him play yet, but go ahead.
Not because he's been playing great running back. He's been okay. He hasn't been great. But Colin Smith is your next Brian Reynolds type. He's a freak athlete. Speed and intangibles that you cannot teach. And so he was moved to right back in North Texas with the idea that he's your next Brian Reynolds. So don't be shocked if the team doesn't make an addition and simply goes, okay, we're going to give Colin Smith a run, allow him to challenge Munjoma and Tuamasi, and you're going to have, yes, he's not the most technical, the best defender, but he's going to be a terror on opposing defenses. Because
I like what Tomasi has done. He's been serviceable. He's kind of got some attack in him, and he's very good with the ball.
He's grown. I think Tomasi has grown. He's giving you. I think you've seen his improvement. Where Munjoma you've seen some gradual improvement. You've seen leaps and bounds of improvement through Tomasi. Yeah. Where I think.
Guess,
I think you're making a good point. I mean, I think having guys who are promising and we know can grow into positions is a good thing to have on a team. But there are also those games where we don't need somebody who's growing. We need somebody who's gonna, just step up and get the job done. And meanwhile too, we have veterans on this team who were supposed to be those kinds of guys and haven't. I mean, there's just a lot of questions that then this offseason the team is going to have to think through, and they can choose to sit and just see if guys develop some more. And it's not the worst thing in the world to do. I mean, sometimes you have that offseason to take all you learned and start fresh for a guy like Tomasi or Munjoma or someone else. But I think we also know that this team isn't going to be good enough next year. With just the roster, right?
They're returning everybody, but I said it before and I'll say it again. I foresee double-digit turnover in players next year. And mind you, I'm not saying they're going to cut and trade 10 players. I'm saying double-digit turnover in that some players will be released, some players will be traded or so or transferred, and some players will simply be loaned out. So I expect the team will basically shuffle the deck. You can expect guys like Ricardo to be gone. I'm not sure if Vargas will be gone because, everyone's been hard on him. He's getting paid like a project, So I think if the team's worried about his actual fitness and seeing that he's regressed and not improved, I could see him gone if that's the case, because let's face it, FC Dallas is when they loan players, you got a season to prove that you got you got Felipe also. I mean, so that's 3 loans right there. That boom, that's 3 guys. Pepe could possibly be gone. We all expect that. That's 4 right there. You know.
Could easily see Brisson or Jose Martinez
Yeah,
get traded
understand.
or go out. You know, one of those guys.
But then you've got Robert Thomas. You've got Dante Sealy. I mean, that's 6 players right there, and that's before we even start talking about other players. You know, like that could go. That Quignon. I mean, he hasn't been the answer.
I mean, I hope the DPs that are they're either too slow, they're making too much money and they're not making an impact. Brian Acosta has not made an impact on the attack. I'm okay with all those going. And keep the young guys, but bring in some good DPs.
I would be okay with Acosta staying, but I would prefer that they buy him down so that he's no longer a DP. My only problem with him is being a DP.
I think he's killed the attack. I mean, I think that, without him in the game, you don't see those shots from midfield and you see more passes into the box services.
My problem with the DPs that Dallas acquires, and they have been acquiring, are that none of them are must-start guys. You see other teams, you know who their DPs are.
When they come in the game, we know who they are. Exactly.
And they're must-start guys. And if they're not starting, it's because they played, a midweek game or something like that. But when they come in off the bench, they change the face of the match. Dallas doesn't get those kind of DPs, and honestly, that's what this team lacks. Get DPs that are take the gamble. Okay, you're gonna get your Harris, you're gonna get your Dennelsons, but you only have to hit on one. So do it.
Yeah.
Take the chance, and okay, we'll be upset when they fail, but you can't just say, "Oh well, Dennelson was horrible. Oh well, Harris is horrible, so we can't try no more." No, keep trying. Eventually, you're gonna hit one out of the ballpark, and having those DPs that can be game changers will give your young players something to strive for. I think that's where those DPs could help. Being behind those kind of difference makers shows the young players what they can strive for. And I would like to see Dallas, if they sell Pepe for a lot of money, please, please, please get us another DP. If you're going to stick with Harris, one of your DPs, please buy down Acosta and go out and get a $5 million, $10 million guy. Please. I don't care if he's a bust. Sooner or later, you're going to get it right.
Well, the funny thing is we've always wanted a striker, right? We paid every year, we had Christian Coman come in. We had the guy from Canada come in. We had some Gedison. We had so many strikers come in. And now we have one that come from our own backyard. And he's not going to even be with us for like a year.
Yeah.
And it's just it's ridiculous.
I mean, Ferreira is technically a second striker. He's not a true number. He's like a false 10, right?
If we're very lucky, he will be a false 9 and play up top next year. And hopefully they can move Paxton in the middle. Because Paxton, I think, is
so we have 2 and they're homegrowns, and it's and we've got more in the pipeline, believe it or not. So
my biggest disappointment this year, they're going back to the right back, is that we had Reggie Cannon. Before we had Reggie Cannon, we had Watson, and before Watson, we had someone else. And they were all similarly built. They were tall. They were super fast. And then after Reggie, we had Reynolds, who I loved Reynolds. I mean, I can only imagine how this season would have been if Reynolds would have been in the right back, right? I think I said that before. At some point, you got to say the goal is to get people to come to the games and have some loyalty to the team. This year, I think Dan Hunt has ran away more fans than kept them, right? I mean, can we all agree on that? I mean, he pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Well, hey, we had a couple of comments here. Our buddy Ben Funch has said, that he would pass on Marco on a head coach, even though Marco has given some minutes to the young guys, which I do think I give credit to Marco for, and he's certainly tried to bring a different mentality, but it's clear he's just revealed that there's a lot of problems with the roster. But Ben, also says, don't we have a winger in North Texas that did really well this year that we got last offseason? And
We have several. I mean, we got Rayo. We've got
Medcar.
He's been hurt, right? Medcar's been hurt.
No, not really. He's been back and forth, on FCD roster, on the NTX, on the North Texas roster.
Didn't we sign a winger from Philadelphia he hasn't played much, has he?
We got Kazoo. So there's some players that are in North Texas. But I'm glad he brought up North Texas because I'm going to tell you, next year, with North Texas moving to the MLS Developmental League next year, people don't realize that their contracts are going to change. Think about it. All the USL contracts will be void. Right now, the way it worked is these players that were in North Texas are in a different league and therefore are not part of the FCD senior roster or extended roster. But when they move to MLS Developmental League, they will essentially be on the FCD roster, just not the main roster. Now, we haven't heard how that's going to work, but the rumors are coming through that it's going to be basically allow FC Dallas to stash players on North Texas, where you got the whole, hey, we got a loan player, this and that. You'll literally be able to call players up. Someone who's on a hot streak in North Texas, there will be a mechanism where, hey, he's already on the FC Dallas roster. You just simply got to move him to senior roster and bump someone down to the supplemental roster, really. It will be a true reserve team. The mechanics haven't been worked out, but this will be huge for FC Dallas next year. The fact that they can just simply have somebody that's hot, like we had, what was his name? I can't think of his name all of a sudden. He got injured. Kaiser, for example. When he was hot, they could have just, if he was, they couldn't just call him up. He has to take a spot on the, they have to loan him to FC Dallas. So I'm looking forward to find out what that mechanic change is going to be. But I know the complaint has always been that it's very hard to move players from USL to MLS. That's always been a trip up. Yes, you got you can loan down for short loans and stuff like that. But I know that it was very hard to get someone from a USL roster on a USL contract to the MLS roster. So that's why the change is happening. And some teams will benefit from this, and FC Dallas stands to gain significantly from this. So that's something we need to keep an eye on. What are those mechanics going to be? Because they will essentially be an extension of the current roster.
That will be interesting to watch. I know there's other things that we'll get to talk about. I know we'll probably next week start to dive into roster changes and things like that. But let's go ahead to the other big storyline. It says we don't have any really other news on the coaching search, except one tidbit that we'll touch upon maybe later.
Yeah. We have one.
Okay. Well, and Ricardo Pepi, of course, the Ricardo Pepi watch. Does he stay or does he go? Boy, it's a lot of news. Rumors that Ajax was scouting him in a recent match.
He played like 10 minutes.
Yeah, played like 10 minutes. But Wolfsburg has made some inquiries. Like, there's just quite a few teams now. A lot of rumors from Premier League and from Serie A, Bundesliga. Just a lot of possibilities out there, which is exciting. A lot of talk about around a £10 million price range, which could be something in his contract or a release clause or something like that, but which would come out to be about 13 million or so, which is in line with kind of what FC Dallas probably would hope to get. So there continues to be a lot of smoke, some fire, but nothing concrete yet. Still, we got a ways to go on this. I probably thought the most telling thing was after he came back from the last international break. He did pick up a little knock, a gash on his leg, just needed some time to heal, which is probably why they have kind of been careful with him a little bit. But there was a shot. The camera was able to spot Pepe and his agent apparently watching that first midweek game back, and yeah, you kind of got the sense that, man, and folks are thinking this last game against Austin was his last home game for FC Dallas.
Yeah.
They'll probably play again this weekend, but yeah, I mean, anything can still happen, and it can still happen that the deal doesn't work out, but it does seem like, for all intents and purposes,
There was also talk that he could be sold, but also loaned to us for another year, so he's ready to go for World Cup as opposed to sitting on the bench wherever he goes.
So I want to point out that we were all talking about Reynolds when all the rumors started coming out with Reynolds, and thinking that there would be a bidding war for him. Let's not forget that they were talking around $5 million for him before a sort of mini bidding war, broke out, and it ended up being $8 million. We've got about twice as many teams being linked to Pepe as we ever did with Reynolds.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not done. They're still coming out of the woodworks. So, I mean, yeah, I think, people say, 10 million, which comes to around 12 to 13 million. If that's where the bidding starts, then hold on, folks, because if teams are serious about Pepe, and all indications are that they are, don't think that, even if that goes up just, like I said, Reynolds went through after the bidding went up only 3 million. You're looking at 15, 16 million minimum. And I'm telling you, there's more teams interested in Pepe than there were for Reynolds. So it'll come down to one or two things. Does he go to the highest bidder, whoever that may be, or does he go to the team that will give him the most minutes? Of course, we're all cheering for the most minutes.
Yeah,
I got to believe that the USA coach is involved in this as well. I mean, advising him what to do and what not to do.
Would think that the USA is advising to stay with Dallas, if at all possible, because I'm telling you right now, if Pepe moves and doesn't get loaned back to Dallas, he's not going to get called into the U.S. because they're not going to want to ruin his chances of competing for a starting job. That's the thing is that happened with Cannon when he first moved, and other players when they first move and they haven't cemented their roster position on new teams, the U.S. tends to back away from those players and say, hey, we don't want to call them for all the camps, because people don't realize that one of the negatives of going to Europe is you literally are competing for your starting, for your minutes. And if you miss training with that team, you go down the depth chart. So do you call him up to your U.S. camp and have him fall down the depth chart in whichever club he's in?
Yeah,
Or-
if he asks me, my advice would be to stay. And you know why? Who did he beat out? Sargent. Where is Sargent playing?
I don't know.
He's not playing in MLS, right? He's
Newcastle.
playing in Europe. So Pepe got better than Sargent playing in MLS. Can we all agree on that? Yes. Pepe got better playing at FC Dallas.
Pepe, I'll tell you,
Sometimes it's not always better on the other side of the tracks.
that's
Pepe
true.
needs to move simply because every time he's moved a level up, he's risen to the occasion. So he was at the academy level. He moved to North Texas. He rose to the occasion. He moved to FC Dallas. He rose to the occasion. So let him take that next step and let's see him rise to the occasion. I'm just saying, do not be surprised if he doesn't get called as much to the men's national team, because they're not going to want to take him away from training with his team and cementing his position there.
I support Pepe whatever he does, but it's his life. He's got to choose it. I'm just saying that just because you go to Europe doesn't mean you're going to become a better player.
It's hard. I mean, there's no guarantees. No guarantees. And our friend Ben says, does the experience of Cannon and Reynolds give the Pepe crew more to think about? And I'm sure it does.
I think so, yes.
But on the other hand, remember, Reynolds was going over there wanted by a head coach, and he couldn't control that situation that they brought in Mourinho. And, you know,
The
think
players
this
are not
this
playing other
yeah,
players.
this is what happens, you know, in soccer, in this business, is that you think you're coming into a situation that works for you, and it radically changes. You get injured, something happens, there's a formation change, you know, and so that's why on some level, if you're gonna do this game professionally and you're gonna want to go and compete in Europe, you're gonna have to like battle. You know, you're
You
gonna
have to elevate.
you have to elevate. You're gonna have to
I'm
take
glad
those
you brought up
chances.
Cannon, by the way, because I wanted to point out that Cannon, who had not been getting minutes with Boavista, we all wondered why. The manager said he's been injured. Now, they hadn't been made a big deal of it, but they're like, he wasn't playing because he's injured, and that's the reason. And we all know he wasn't 100% when he was with the U.S. team. But he started 2 weeks ago, played the full match, and then he started this weekend, and 16 minutes in, had to leave the match for re-aggravating whatever injury it is that he had. So Cannon has been injured since the U.S. camp, since his last U.S. camp, and he has not, whatever it is that's bothering him, he has not fully recovered from it, and that's what's holding him back.
So the bottom line, there's no guarantees that going across the pond will make Pepe the World Cup champion or not. You know, it's
No,
the luck of the draw,
no.
and you know,
He'll have to control what he can control. Yeah. And Josh Sargent, I think Josh Sargent's going to get better. I think he is. But on the other hand, you know,
do you think he can
who
become
knows?
Pepe better? You think he
I
becomes
don't
Pepe
know.
better?
I don't know.
But
He's
I don't
young.
think so.
Sargent, but I want to say something. Take what's happened with U.S. players, young players, from 2 years ago to today, and because the appetite for U.S. players is growing, and the fact that, you know, COVID decimated the budgets of many teams, it's forced teams to look for good quality talent at more affordable rates, which you can find in the U.S. So players that went to Europe 2-3 years ago would have gotten much better deals today because the appetite for U.S. players, because of those players that went 2-3 years ago and 4 years ago, have laid the groundwork for the young players like the Pepis and the Aaronsons and these other guys.
Aronson is the one I was like, wow, he's really. Wow.
It laid the groundwork. So you're seeing just within 2-3 years, you're seeing a growth in the appetite for U.S. players. So I think Pepe will have it better than Reynolds. Will have it better than, as far as his choice. Hopefully he makes the right choice, but that's not something we can control.
Well, let's keep it rolling here. All right, next segment, front office wish list. And there is a whole background chatter going on among FC Dallas fans about issues with front office that have an ongoing pressure points, and as well as frustration about some of the things we've already talked about, purchasing players and coaching situations and things. So, you know, I'm just curious what you all would think would be on your front office wish list for this coming off season. What is one move that FC Dallas could make from the front office perspective? You know, maybe it is a designated player, maybe it's out of the box coaching hire, maybe it's something else that would give you some hope and some excitement to kind of plug back in to where FC Dallas is going. What do y'all think? What is on your front office wish list?
I will tell you right now what my wish list is. It is very simple. It's not addition. It's not subtraction. It's very simple. I want the Hunts to allow Sonota to make the calls, make it his team 100%, get his manager that he wants, get the players that he wants, have him prove that he is the right man for the job. Because I've been one of the guys that's defended him and said, hey, Hara is not his guy. Acosta is not his guy. I know some people like to say that Bressan's his guy, but that's not true either. Bressan's not one of his guys. There are guys on the roster that were brought in prior to Sonota that are still on the roster. And we need to see those guys. We need to see the team move away from those guys and allow Sonota to bring in his guys and make it his team and have the Hunt step away. Don't force players like Hara on him. Let him prove that he's the right man for the job, or And if that happens, if you get rid of Ricarte, you get rid of Acosta, you get rid of all these guys that were brought in before Bresson, get rid of all these guys that came in before Sonoda, and allow him to replace him with his guys. Then we can judge him through and say, hey, those are your players. That's your team. That's your manager. You know, and prove us that he's not just a seller, because he has a strong history as a seller, and he's come to Dallas and proved he can sell players. Well, now prove us that you can make a winning team. You know, which he did have a reputation for that in Brazil, but we haven't seen it.
Yeah.
And is that him or is that the owner? So my wish list is Hunt step aside, let Sonoda run the show, let him get his guy, whoever that may be, even if he's not a guy who's connected to FC Dallas by one way or another. Allow him to bring in his guy, allow him to bring in his players, get out of his way, and let him make him his team and prove that he's the right guy for the job that can lead this team.
All right.
Just one thing?
Sure.
That's my one thing.
Just start. Yeah. I mean, I know that we probably can go down the list.
To be the man.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
Hold on, let me clear this.
Got some thunderstorms coming through. All right.
So let me just start before I talk about my one thing, or probably be a couple. FC Dallas has 7 wins this year. 3 of those came against the newly Austin FC team. Now, you may be happy that we win the Texas Copa. Big whoop. You know, we beat Austin FC, the expansion team in Houston. Let's take away those 3 wins. So 7 minus 3 is 4 wins out of MLS, out of the MLS team league, which is really mediocre in some people's minds. You know, a lot of those teams don't have a Ronaldo or Messi. And we got 4 wins. So, you know, what do we want? You know, I think we need an apology from the front office. You know, we had that presser just a few weeks ago. There was not very apologetic. It was basically, we have a MLS Cup team, which we don't have, right? It's pretty much black and white. You know, we got Marco. Marco couldn't do it either. It's not, in my opinion, it's not Marco's fault. This roster is very much mediocre. There are good players. Now, I mean, I don't mean to say anyone is bad per se. I like the youth on our team. I really like Tafari. I really like Pereira. I really like Pepe. And now I kind of like favor O'Brien a little bit, and maybe not as a starter, but I think he's definitely got some value. I definitely think that Vargas, as you talked about, he's going to be a prospect down the road. But what I want is competition at every. I want the team to be filled in a way that it's built to win, like competition at right back, you know, competition at winger, have someone who can playmaker, you know, I'd like to see the for me, I want to win, but I also want FC Dallas to be a club that North Texas brags about, is enthusiastic about. When I go to the games, there's not tons of empty seats. You know, I really want to one day have a dream that this will be a soccer community where Pepe will want to stay, Reynolds will be right back. You know, all the good players that we have will be on FC Dallas to win a title, and people will just go to the games and you can't buy a ticket because we have a good team. That's not what we have here. And, you know, my dream is to have a front office that's sincere to the fans about winning. And I don't think we have that. I mean, if we're going to be a development club, then let's call us FC Developmental, and we can give our money to develop the club if that's what we're going to do. But if we're going to win, don't come out and say we're going to win with this club, because it's not what we have.
All right, that's a good, very passionate answer.
And I think you know, you have to agree with what Tommy said, and I want to add to that is I think that Hunt needs to come out and lay down clearly what his expectations for the club are, what the goals are, and lay them down and be honest with us, because they keep telling us MLS Cup is the goal, but their decision making and their moves don't scream MLS Cup, you know, contender.
They threw Lucci under the bus, you know.
Yeah,
it's just bad as it can get as a front office. I mean, it's just bad.
Right now, they're saying what we want to hear, but their actions don't reflect that. And that's what I'm saying. I think what Tommy's saying is be honest with us. What is your idea of success? What does that look like? And what do you plan to do to achieve it? Because they keep saying, we're this, but the fans know that's not true. And it, honestly, the team not making the playoffs is probably the best thing that could have happened, because had we made the playoffs, snuck in, and get eliminated in the first round, Dan and then would have patted themselves on the back and said, good season, we made the playoffs. Is that it? Is that the goal, just to make the playoffs, get into the playoffs? Is that a successful season? Because it shouldn't be.
Yeah, we backed into it a year ago or so. We played terrible, and then we beat a poorly roster from Kansas City, and we made the playoffs. And we had a new life, and we did win a game, but it's just lightning in the bottle, right? It's just you are what you are.
Our friend Ben commented that as a former season ticket holder, he says, my hope is that the front office would value having a full stadium and a waiting list for season tickets.
That's exactly what I said.
Yeah, and so good synergy there. And it is a systemic issue. I mean, it's not. They have good personnel. They have good staff. They have some great talent coming up, and right there. I mean, I appreciate, Jose, that you lifted up Cervania and Cerrillo. I think if we gutted the rest of the midfield guys, and said Cervania and Cerrillo are going to be our midfielders this next season. Now, is that MLS Cup winning? Is that an MLS Cup winning midfield? Probably not. But it's really a competent one. It can be solid. If you add pieces around them, it could be a really spectacular team. If you build on them, yeah, and you let them continue to grow. I mean, they're both young, and they're going to – they have –
and then don't call them mid-season.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, like Tessman, I'm sorry, but I wasn't happy that Tessman was sold. People forget that Tessman was a starter. And, okay, maybe he wasn't the best starter, but he was taking those steps sufficiently that some team in Serie A said, we want that kid.
Yeah, I would like to see that guy get more minutes in MLS before leaving. I don't know that was the right decision.
And I'm just saying, that's the only issue is, yes, I love that Cerrillo and Cervania are getting their minutes, and maybe they are the answer for us next year, but what's the guarantee from Hunts that they're not going to say, hey, look at that Cervania kid. He's still, you can have him for the right price, and then the season we're scrambling for another replacement.
Well, I think for me, I mean, just for my wish list then, not that it's all in this one thing or anything. I mean, there's so many issues, and it could happen in many different ways. And certainly a fan experience is something that they've had time to get right. They should be able to get right. There's so many aspects that even outside of the product on the field, but I do think this head coaching hire is important. And I just hope, and I'm kind of with you, Jose, too, that if Zanota can bring in his guy, the kind of relationship where they can work closely together, and it's not this sort of here are the players, try to win, but rather let's talk, let's build a cohesive vision, and let's push the front office and be like, no, we need this to win. This is the kind of player we need to bring in. And I think Dan Hunt and the front office, they need to be stretched, and we need a coach, an outside voice. Not that that's again going to solve all the problems, but it has a potential, especially if someone who's had some success building up a team. I think it'll be hard to discredit that. And Lucci was an interesting try. He knew the club well. He knew the front office well. He's a great guy, just a great human being. But it didn't work. And so you might as well look for someone with experience this time who's been down this road and will challenge the culture. Because maybe the culture needs to change some.
And I'm glad you bring up Lucci again, because I want to say the one thing that we've seen since Oscar left, in all honesty, with Lucci and with Ferruzzi, is you're seeing the team trying to force players to play in positions that they're not best suited for. You got Paxton's not playing his optimal position. You could argue that Jesus is not playing his optimal position. That's something that we've seen consistently, where you wonder, why don't you alter the formation to best suit what you have? Why isn't Paxton starting in the center? And by the way, let's say we're running a 4-2-3-1, and Paxton was your number 10. He's got an excellent backup 10 in Roberts, who can't even sniff the field. So you actually have two, not one, but two potential number 10s on your roster, but you're running an offense that doesn't call for a 10. You know, you got an excellent secondary striker in Jesus, but you don't run an offense that uses two strikers. Okay.
Yeah, I think it comes down to numbers. I think that, they play that formation, and Jesus is behind Pepe, right? And then I think Paxton is just injured. I think they don't want to get him injured in the middle of the field. I think they're playing him out to avoid injury. Maybe next year he moves back inside, but I think it has to do with that. That's just my guess.
I'm saying I think we need a manager that's not afraid to experiment and make a formation that fits the players you have on the roster, as opposed to taking the players on your roster and trying to make them fit in your formation of preference, which is, I think, what we've seen for the last 3 years.
And to your point, we've seen Jesus flourish in the U.S. when he played up top. And I got to believe that if Pepe leaves, that's where Jesus will end up.
Yeah.
I think I want to say I saw something on social media where someone criticized Jesus, saying that he hadn't been back to the U.S. because he didn't look good last time out or something like that. And I was thinking, wait a minute, the last game that Jesus played for the U.S., he had like a monster game where he scored who knows how many goals and had how many assists. It was that one route that they had where he just went nuts. And he hasn't been called back since. I'm like, you think a guy who went out there and had a monster game would see more minutes, but that has more to do with the fact that I don't think he's been.
Yeah, I think he got injured, or he came back to practice and he was injured, and so that kind of set him back. But now he is back in form, and he better be getting a look.
My point is, he hasn't been called back because he played badly for the team.
Right.
He actually the opposite. He played great.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's just behind some other players who are ahead of him right now, but give him time. He's the biggest gem, I think, from other teams looking for a gem. That's a gem. He's a steal right now.
But he's a player that I think has played well enough that he should at least get an invite.
Yeah.
And be given a shot again.
It's going to be
but
fierce.
Like you said,
yeah.
U.S. played him in his optimal position, and you saw the result.
Well, Rick, we need to close out the show, as I need to get to bed here shortly. But all right, but other good news: North Texas Soccer Club is in the playoffs. I mean, it was a battle to get there. There was some uncertain moments, and North Texas missed a chance to secure a home playoff game with another late goal given up. But the team is exciting. They're really fun to watch. They could score at any moment. There's a lot of athletic players that are raw, that are growing, that have skill, that can just do incredible things. And so just a lot to enjoy and watch. But they will play at Chattanooga, which is going to be a tough task. I mean, Chattanooga has their number in some ways, but there's always
Rev
a chance.
I've been crying to Rev, saying that this is the worst possible matchup for North Texas, because the one team that has consistently found a way to either win against North Texas or draw a match that North Texas is winning has been Chattanooga. They've done it in all 4 games against North Texas, scoring goals after in extra time or at the death. All 4 matches, Chattanooga has basically come out and snatched either a draw from the jaws of defeat or an outright victory against North Texas. And you just see it. You just see where even North Texas, when they have outplayed Chattanooga, each 4 matches, so it's not a fluke, and this is their opponent. So I hope if North Texas can vanquish Chattanooga, look out. Mm-hmm. But as far as matchups, the worst possible matchup they could have gotten.
Well, we'll see what this team is made of. It'll be a great experience for them. Now,
One last thing.
Sure.
While I'm saying that, I will say that of the big three, Union, with us being Union Omaha, Greenville, and Chattanooga, Chattanooga is actually the weakest of the three home teams at home. Union and Greenville are practically unbeatable, but Chattanooga is beatable, so there is a slight rail.
Okay. Well, in my gut, Tommy, I would agree. You know, I don't think Marco at this point is a serious head coach. I mean, candidate, of course, don't count out Dan Hunt from them deciding otherwise. You know, who knows? They're going to make that call. But I think Eric Quill would become a serious candidate and deserve that if he can lead North Texas to another championship this season. This could be a tough road, but if they can get him up and get this team, I think Eric Quill should be in that conversation as a potential interesting.
And I agree with that. Yeah. He'd have 2 championships in 3 seasons, and really missed out playing for the title last year by a last-second goal.
I'd be okay with that. I like the fact that it's in FC Dallas. I mean, just like Lucci, sometimes I think you bring in these coaches. I've seen it with the USA. They bring these coaches from other countries. You know, they're not local. It's better to promote from within if you can.
Yeah, and he would know some of these kids, and they play a really exciting brand of soccer that's just a lot of fun to watch.
But with a good roster, I could support Marco. I'll say that. You know, I don't judge him based on these games because I know the roster what it is, right? It just kind of is what it is. I think that you'd be shorting yourself if you judge Marco on these games because the roster is the same. The roster.
My opinion on Ferruzzi, if he gets the job, let's say he does,
mm-hmm.
I would like that to be a short deal, like a 1 or 2 year deal with extensions, as opposed to like Lucci giving a 3-year deal and you've got an unproven coach.
Mm-hmm.
You would have the same thing with Marco. So it should be if you're going to do that, if you're going to give it to even Quill, if you're going to give it to somebody who's, you know, you would consider inexperienced, give him a short leash, give him a year with extensions and say, hey, prove to us that you're the guy. We're going to give you the shot, but you have to prove that you're the guy for the job.
Because I like Pereira, and Marco was just like this with Pereira, right? So I think he's going to be the same kind of coach if he gets it with Pereira. I guess he'd be like Pereira.
I'd like to add that I would be okay if FC Dallas made a trade with Orlando and bought Pereira. Throwing that out there.
Yeah.
But I see those two as the same kind of coach. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, good. Well, thanks, everybody. Thanks, Ben, for those comments. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Tommy. Thanks, Jose, for joining us tonight. Of course, we will post this up on the old podcast site, and it should be available out there, and hope you subscribe if you weren't able to catch. And we should be back next Monday night to talk more about latest results, the final weekend of regular season action, and maybe, who knows, what other news and rumors and notes will come out in between. Yeah. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, guys.